classroom is related to the data structure. File is also data structure for what? To store the data. Okay? So think about your laptop or the cell phone, any types of computer. Where do you store the data? Eventually, it's on the file. Right? Then that file use what? Such a hardware. Hard disk drive, or solid state disk, or sometimes a non-volatile memory, or the memory chip, or the memory disk, whatever. But whenever you store the data, save the data, or the process data, it's on the file. So file is the data structure, which means file is not always the image file. File is not always the text file. Each one has the different what? Data structure inside. Okay, so sometimes, for example, the Microsoft Word has their own data structure. It defines what is a file header, and from here to here is the data or the profile. So we are going to discuss about such what is a file and what kind of general file structure. Then, what happens when you have the many files? So, for example, when you have the 2 or 3 files, it's not a problem to read the data, to write the data, to search the data from a file, because you have the only few number of files. What if you have the millions of files? It's a problem. So how do you think about the operating system, the Windows, the Android, Whatever the operating system you use? Think about where is the file. File is stored at, located at directory, right? Or folder if we are using the Windows. So mainly there are 2 main data structure for the file system interface. So using on top of the hardware, so we are going to discuss about the file system. That is the part of operating system to store the data and information. Then if you think about your operating system that you are using, there are 2 main types of the data structure, which is called the interface. One is the file itself. What is a file and how the file is organized. And another main interface is you always save or locate the file at certain folder. Like the desktop is the name of a folder. Okay. So by the way, what is the difference between folder and directory? It's the same, basically the same data structure, but the Windows used a different name. But it's slightly different. We will see what is the difference of the folder comparing to the directory later. But basically, it's the same interface. So I'm going to use mostly the directory instead of the folder. So file and the directory. In case you have the many files, so like think about how many files do you have in your laptop. Have you ever checked the antivirus program? If you check, it shows how many files. So surprisingly, it's 100,000. More than 100,000 files in your laptop already you have. So in case you have such a huge number of files, so we need the directory structure. Mainly we are going to talk about the 2 things. One is the file, another one is the directory. Then these 2 interfaces will be implemented in the next chapter, file system. What is a file system? It's a software to manage the data. Where is the data? Which means it's through the file and the directory. In your project, second project, what you are going to implement is such a file system. But it's a very, very simplified file system. It doesn't require the directory structure, only single directory. But you will implement the file, the interface for the file system. Okay, so, and I think that I mentioned several times, what is a file itself? Its data structure is nothing but, actually, it's a byte string. Each one has the byte. Okay, it's a string. Think about the program language to handle the file. So Java, what kind of class will be used to handle the file? file stream. Why is it called a stream? It doesn't look like a stream, but it's called a file stream. Why? Actually, file itself is not like such a document style or the Excel file. It's nothing but it's a byte stream. Okay. However, if you organize this byte stream like up to 10 byte, after 10 byte there is a, for example, like this character. This is called a new line character, which is not visible, but this indicate new line. So when you display, so whenever you encounter this one and show this way, so it can be like the document style. But inside, it's nothing but just a byte stream. In case of binary, like the image data you have, image has the what? 100 by the 100 pixel. Each pixel has RGB, red, green, and blue value, 3 channels, the color, everybody know. So like the 100, 100, or 100 RGB. This value is here. But to represent one color, we need 8 bit 2 to the power of 8. So 1 byte is enough to represent one color, 100, 100, 100. And here, it's a sequence of the color value. However, each file has their own header, data structure, as I said. For example, image has a size 100 by 100. This is a 3 color and something format of the color. Using this one, it can be displayed as the images when you display. So, file is nothing but the sequence of the byte. However, depending on how to organize, depending on the type of the file, each one has their own data structure. Okay? Usually, such a data structure is in the header information. So most of the file has the header, then followed by the data. So using this information, what about the Microsoft, the Word file? Word file is the same thing. Word define their own. For example, sometimes I can open the Word file using the editor. As long as that editor program knows this data structure, you can open it. Okay? PDF file is opened by the image viewer. As long as the image viewer knows this information, you can open the file. Okay? So that is the file. So, but in this class, we are not going to talk about the details of each file, the types. Instead, we can categorize such a file as a simple. You have seen the simple record structure in the database class. If you are taking the data, if you already took the database or are taking the database, anyone who are taking the database? I know that some of you. So we are talking about this one, the last class. It's exactly the same thing. We can use such a file to keep the data. The data, sometimes it can be separated by the line, and each line has a record, and record has something attribute. So sometimes it's a very complex data structure like the MS Word. Each one has their own format in the header information. Okay. Then, but we can consider the type of the file. One is the data. The mostly data is alphanumeric data, like the number and the character, sometimes a binary. And the others are program. Program means what? Executable file. So compiled and mostly sequence of instruction. So most of the program executable file can be loaded into memory, and on the other hand, the data can be accessed by the other process. So these are the data and the program. By the way, how do you know whether this file is the data or the program? Type. How do you know that type? From the name? But the name can be changed. I usually create A. Extension. That's good. However, most of the Windows program has the extension. The 3, but nowadays longer than 3, right? What if you change the extension, like the PDF to the JPG. Does it mean the file type is really changed? No. It's still the PDF file, even though you change the extension. Extension is for your user convenience. It doesn't change the real characteristic of the file. Instead, the file type is stored as sometimes, not always, sometimes it's in the header information, okay, format. Okay, some of the program, there is a program to show the file type. For example, in the Unix, why don't you test the Unix? There is a command file. File, then let me. You can use the GCP compute engine or any other. Let me use this one. The main problem of using the virtual machine is the screen. Touch screen is different from the. It's very hard to control. Yes, this time is okay. Cannot see the menu because of this. Yes. Okay, where's the terminal? Zoom in. One more time, zoom in. Okay, so for example, file command, it shows it access this command, file command access the header information of the file, then shows that this is a ASCII text. This is a file type, or if there is a desktop is the directory, it shows the type of the file. So it's a directory. Desktop is the directory, and so on. So there are the other types of text and the source and the executable file. What is the difference between the object and executable file? Object file sometimes is called the library file or the DLL file. What is the difference? What happens when you compile the source program? Compiler create first object file. Okay, object file is exactly converted to the from high level your source to the instruction. Then you need sometimes the other library or the shared library or the DLL file to execute. To make the executable file, you need to link. So after link, you can have the executable file. All of these are the files. Then finally, the file has such an information in the header. So name, identifier, types that we discussed, and location. Where is the location of the device? Like we learned about the block addressing. So this file is linked to that block. Okay. And the size, protection, and so on. By the way, what's the difference between the name and the identifier? Identifier is in the file for what? Because we have a name. Operating system cannot recognize the name of the file. Name is only for the user, convenience purpose. So for like us, or like the other program, it's for the name is a name. However, the operating system only consider identifier, which means when you create a file, output of the create file is file identifier, which is called the file descriptor. Because of that, if you are doing the programming, you probably realize that whenever you create a file, output of the variable of the output of the creating file is always FD. Why is named FD or FD1, FD2? It's a file descriptor. So file descriptor is a unique number that can be used for entire operating system. However, for your convenience, because we are not familiar with such a number, we can use the name. Even though you change the name, you cannot change the identifier until you recreate and create. The similar thing happen in the username and the group name. The operating system does not care your username and the group name. Instead, it consider the user ID and the group ID. Okay. What about the size? When you modify or when you create finally your size information is stored as the header information as a file attribute, the size. Sometimes this file can be illegally changed, like the virus program. So first time antivirus program check this information, file size in the header information attribute with what? The real file size. So that if there is any difference, it may be affected by the other malicious program. So that is actually the first generation of the antivirus program to check the real file size and the information in the file, the header. Okay. So you can browse, you can see the bunch of different ways. This is the example of the macOS. Okay. Then they are the data structure. Then plus we have the operation with the file. We can write the data and we can read the data. Regarding to the read, there are different types of read. One is a sequential read from the beginning and the continue. Another approach is random access. If we know the location of the file and the data on the file, we can directly access such a data. The last thing is, it looks like the end of the class. So let's pass it. Last one is, what is a truncate? Anyone? Truncate means we do not hurt, change the file structure. Instead, only flush out the data. So sometimes the truncate is very useful to remove the data quickly and keep the file structure. So tomorrow, next class, we will talk about more about the file interface, including the directory structure. Then we'll explain a little bit about your project before we start the file system. Thank you.